if you want to see how some of the dumb things I've asked, you can go through
I
and
have
see all of it.
I have an ungodly amount of them.
I'm realizing how many of these are dumb and personal ones that I don't think should be read out loud too. Hold on. Ridiculous house rules for a guest coming over.
No, that sounds fun. All right, well, welcome back. We're here for another recording of the Labor Thoughts podcast. For those of you that clicked into this, whether you're listening or watching us on the screen, we're here to talk about artificial intelligence and ways it can be used to make your life a little easier, and maybe some ways you can get some of your time back. So we'll touch on that, but first we'll have to kind of set the stage, see what AI is, see what's out there, and then we'll go into how we as the labor relations team here at NECA use it, and hopefully you can pull from that some ways that you in a chapter or working for one of our members as a contractor can use this to enhance what you do and get some of that precious time back during the day. For those of you that are watching on the screen, you can see that I'm not alone here. I've got our stellar team here with us today, and I'm just going to kick it over and let them do a quick introduction of themselves. We'll start with Ian there.
Well, hey, Ryan, thanks for having me back. My name is Ian Andrews, and I am NECA's Executive Director of Field and Industrial Labor Relations, and you have piqued my interest with Capture and Get Your Time Back.
Yeah, it's valuable, isn't it? We can always make a lot of things. We can never make more time. John?
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you having me back on the Labor Thoughts podcast. My name is Jonathan Mandl. I'm the Director of Labor Relations, and at this point, I think I'm fully constructed out of AI, so I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Yeah, that's not even John's real video feed, for those of you that are watching. So, all right, well, guys, thank you for coming on and being on today. I had it, this idea kind of came to me whenever, we started pushing out a lot of content from labor relations and just how beneficial AI has been into it. I don't want anybody listening or watching this to sit here and think that we're just plugging into AI and letting that churn out our content. That would probably cause a lot of problems. There's a lot of human effort that goes into it, but the amount of quantity and also the quality of said quantity has increased, I would say exponentially, because we've learned how to use it to enhance what we do on a day-to-day basis. But we need to start with what's out there. So obviously there's the big ones. Everybody can probably think of a few of them off the top of your head. But there's more than just I would say the big two or the big three. But instead of me sitting here trying to go through, John, I think you had a list of them. You want to kind of rattle off what you found?
Yeah, thanks. So, of course, everybody knows the big one, which is ChatGPT. That's by OpenAI. There's Google Gemini. There's Sora. There's I'm going to say this wrong. Anthropic Claude. There's Jasper AI, Copy.ai, WriteSonic, Cohere, and those are just a couple of the many that I was able to find. Just a quick Google search of AI tools available for general use. You can even use one of those AI to search for other AI, which I've done before. If you're looking to do something specific like write a story or create a video. So there's tons of them out there right now, but those are some of the main ones that we use.
I think it's interesting what you bring up there, where I think we're entering the stage of AI where there's so many resources available. We need AI to tell us how to use the AI that we have, which is a little concerning, but I guess also something that we'll have to focus on and make ways to make ourselves more efficient with AI. From that list, Ian, do you know of any other ones out there, or anything you wanted to add to that one there?
No, I would just add, I'm kind of surprised John left himself off the list as entering this conversation, that he was 100% AI at this point. I think he's a valuable resource, and he should be on that list. I'm kind of disappointed whatever source pulled that source and they left him off, but we'll do better next time.
I think it's because he's new on the scene, kind of, and so the other models are still learning of his existence.
I think they're jealous
of
once the development phase he is. That's just me.
That's also true. He's fooled us all. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of it out there. The interesting thing, and a part of it I always like to talk about with AI, is kind of where we are in the development of AI, because when you look at the news or you talk to anybody in general, the first thing that John said was ChatGPT, and that's the main one everybody knows, and that's when it exploded onto the scene. And I think maybe looking back, history will note that as kind of the turning point in technology, because it now became available to every person. You know, if you, regardless of your skill level with a computer or with technology, you can open ChatGPT and you can start asking it questions and start actually producing things from it. But we are still very much in the infancy of it being in the public eye. But that doesn't mean it's not useful. That doesn't mean that we can't enhance our daily lives, not only professionally but personally. So why don't we touch on that a little bit? Let's just jump into how we as a team use artificial intelligence. Ian, what do you do?
Well, I think it depends on the day and the need, but I'm trying to find an excuse at least 2 or 3 times a day to utilize it somewhere. In my world, the biggest one is honestly consolidation of information and using that to either reframe or kind of kickstart the idea of how something should be. You know, if a publication comes out that's 15 pages and very, very dense, you can literally direct link that document into, pick your favorite, you know, AI model and say, prompt, make this 3 paragraphs, make this 2 paragraphs, and that a 4-year-old would understand. And it will reframe that document down to exactly what you asked for. Read it, and then, you know, add the human element, the human touch to make it something transferable to the unique IBW world. Because the last thing anybody should ever do is just straight up copy and paste out of a ChatGPT. So that's been a really valuable, I call it time saver, just putting together something you've read, you're familiar on the entire document, but making it tangible and digestible by the average audience member, because not everybody is going to spend their time diving into those types of documents. I've been using it for templating quite a bit as well, just from the idea standpoint. If you had an ask, hey, trying to build a company policy for safety, I just don't even know where to start. I haven't seen one before. It was a newer contractor. Prompt, build me a general safety policy that I could consider for a NECA contractor. It'll put together that outline. You can then use that, work with NECA safety team, start to vet it, review it. Is there something here that's useful? But at least you're not starting with a blank slate. And then, honestly, I'm excited about this in the future. The paid versions, when you can kind of keep your data a little more proprietary, paywalled, you can use this to evolve living documents and try to find best practices out of it. So I'm excited to dive into that space next, kind of what's coming. But, I know a company that's taking this for their paywall and they're putting resumes of people that have worked really well within their company culture. They're going to take that and then try to pull commonalities out that maybe aren't seen to the average eye, but you can use an AI model to say this person is good in this space. This person had this as a background. This person had this tenure at a company before coming to our company. So I'm excited to find a way to scale that into our world. But for the time being, those have been the big ones, trying to make things just a little more simple with good prompting.
Overall, of kind of what you're hitting on there is, like you said, it kind of clears up the writer's block to an extent. It helps you kick off getting started, and you already kind of hit on just how it gives you a little bit of that precious time back. John, you're kind of the one I was thinking of whenever I was putting this together, because I know like you're the one that kind of turns up the new ones. We were prepping for this recording and we were just kind of having a general conversation about the outline, and John rattles off an AI I'd never heard of. So he had to kind of tell me what that one is and what it does. So, John, how are you using AI just, not only professionally on the team, but have you found uses of it outside of work as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say for work purposes, how it helps me in my daily work is a lot of what I do is work on the labor relations alerts and bulletins, some of the best practices. I kind of start the outlines, and a lot of times I'll have a topic that I want to touch on, but maybe I might have some difficulty getting started on like an opening paragraph, and I'll say, let's say I'm using ChatGPT, and I'll say, hey, I want to write a paper about this. Can you give me an opening paragraph? How do I lead into something that I want to talk about, right? And then we'll kind of go back and forth. The cool thing about the ones that are kind of available to the general public, the free ones at least, they're large language models, which is pretty much what everything is based off of on ChatGPT. And using ChatGPT. A large language model it's a type of AI that can read, understand, and write text like humans. It's kind of an amalgamation of all the input that people put into it. It can connect to the internet and read things on the internet like news articles and things like that, and then it spits out an answer for you. So that's typically the one I use to get started on writing some of those documents. But then I'll have it assist me with research, right? Maybe I'm really struggling to find like an NLRB case or a Supreme Court case that talks about something that we're writing about. And so I'll ask it to search the internet and say, hey, can you find me a case that, covers the topic that I'm writing about? It'll go do some research and it'll spit something out, and then I'll continue reading it and see if it's applicable or not. Ian had mentioned the paid versions. If you upload a document to them, and that's where you want to be careful because, like both Ryan, you and Ian mentioned, proprietary data is stored on these, so you want to be really careful what you upload. But it can analyze and summarize a lot of documents. So, you go on and find a 150-page document. You can upload it into ChatGPT or any of the other ones we mentioned and say, hey, give me a 15 paragraph summary or a 1 paragraph summary, and it'll do that for you. The key is on all these, large language model AI tools that we use, they all say, I can read it here, it says ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important info. So it is still in its infancy stage and it's still learning, but that's probably the main piece of it that I use is helping me in my writing skills, helping me when I have writer's block, general assistance with forms and templates if I want to put something together, and so that's pretty much how I use it in my work life, I would say.
Yeah, John, thank you for that, man. I mean, it's you talked a little bit, I think, about the paid ones, and you were kind of touching on what Ian said there, and that's an interesting piece of it to pull because AI is going to be obviously a revenue generator for a lot of companies. So there's going to be paid models. There's paid versions of ChatGPT. There's the paid version of Google Gemini, which is kind of the other big competing large language model to ChatGPT. I also kind of I liked how you put in there like the research and how you sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for. You just kind of start typing things into it, and that how that can produce just a lot of good information. I know me specifically, I had to do a script at one point. I was putting videos together for labor relations and had that writer's block. I was like, I don't even know where to start with this. And then pulled up ChatGPT and I just typed in, give me a 101 history of labor relations. And it spit out this timeline of like the whole history of it. I put in specifically in the United States because I didn't want to get into like all the labor movements that brought us here, but then it walked through like everything that I went through in high school and in college, like all of the stuff that actually built, the National Labor Relations Act and the Labor Relations Act, or Labor Management Act, excuse me, and just all of the other little things that went into building those. And it was a really comprehensive history. But so that's kind of a specific example I have, and I have others that I can talk about here in a minute, but we have been talking just generally, like we use this, we do that. But to maybe give some help to those that are watching and listening, touch on some of the specifics that you guys do. Like what is something you would normally ask it? So John, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I don't have any pulled up in front of me right now. The large language model AI will usually keep a log of what how you converse with it. So if you're ever looking for something that you've done with it in the past, you can go and look. But I will say the more specific that you can tailor your prompts, the better these AI work. So for example, if I wanted to look at some construction drawings and I wanted to get some insight onto an estimate I'm doing, for example, I wouldn't just say, hey, can you look at this document and tell me what I need to know? I would need to be really specific and say, I'm going to upload some blueprints. I want you to analyze them to see where there are cost-saving methods on this very specific item. Is there any opportunity that I can, better optimize my use of this specific tool or this specific catalog item? And it'll give you that information. I could put something in right now and it'll tell me what I want to know, but my advice is always the more specific you can make it, the better. And one that I like to use a lot is, I'm writing an article in this specific format on this specific topic. I'd like an introduction with 3 bullet points and then a short paragraph conclusion, and it'll do that. So that's typically what I use it for, and that's how I prompt it.
That's pretty amazing to see. Like that's how far we've come. Even we talked about we're still kind of in the infancy, but it sounds a little bit like you're talking to a fellow colleague of like, hey, I need you to collaborate with me on this project. Here's what I'm doing, and here's how I need you to help. And it doesn't sound like you're talking to a computer. It sounds as if we're sitting in a team meeting and John's putting an article together and he's like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. I need you guys to help here. And maybe that is not a bad way to think about it. Like if you sit there and just think of it as a kind of a faceless system spitting information back out to you, you may not word your prompts correctly, but like John just kind of illustrated there, it's all about how you craft your search. So if that's a way you can kind of frame it, is how would you ask a colleague to help you? And I mean, John, you've seen good results doing it that way. Correct.
I have, yeah, and I always try to be very polite, please and thank yous, because when AI takes over, I'm going to be on the good list.
Yeah, you're going to get the good job. So, all right, well, that's awesome. And for the artificial intelligence looking in on this call, I would like to work for John, just FYI, whenever this all happens. So, but Ian, now's your chance to get off the naughty list and on the nice list for AI. So what prompts do you use? What do you do maybe on a daily, weekly basis with it?
Well, I follow John's lead and I say please and thank you as often as I can. It's good manners. No, I use it very similar. I would agree with John. The great users of AI in the future and today are not those that know which systems to use, but those who know how to prompt well. I think strong prompting is going to be the key to better utilization, and generalities are better for refinement. So I use it in, pulled up my last several prompts, and the first one was consolidate this document into a 2-paragraph executive summary. It did that. My next prompt was reword it simpler, and it did that again. So there was kind of a granular aspect of it, but I mean other just random ones that have kind of come up in this space that I think are worth noting. I did a search on NICA and IBW collaboration efforts across the country worth highlighting, and it came up with a couple lists of just LMCC articles or good PR pieces that I was able to then use and share with somebody that I asked. What's the next one on here? Just opposite perceptions of the following example. And then I typed in an example of somebody who was looking for a counter argument for, and it came up with a list of about 3. And then my next prompt was, give me 10 more. Then my next prompt was, give me 10 more. And it brought up unique examples of counter arguments. I was trying to come up with something I thought was a solution, trying to poke holes in it. In my head, it was perfect as is. ChatGPT found 23 examples in 10 seconds, and all of them had some level of merit. Another good one, this is, post-labor relations conference, as we're recording after. Thank you again for all that attended. I put in examples of conference items at labor relations specific events across the country in 2024. And that's when I got back our database is only through 2022 response, which is a nice reminder that there is not current data necessarily planted in, which is something I think we'll talk about later. So that's just kind of an example. I want to, dive into a very niche area, and then I use it to then simplify if I'm sharing whatever information is coming out or trying to reframe it for the human touch after.
Yeah. The way you talk about it, like starting in the generalities and refining, and you both kind of hit on that. And I'm glad that you guys are both in the same vein. It's you have to be able to search better. You have to know how to use it. I did a talk on AI a little while back at the NICA Win and Future Leaders conference, and I don't even think AI was supposed to be like the main thing we were talking about, but obviously we all just latched onto it. And what I liken to what we have today is the early stages of search engines. Like now everybody kind of knows pretty well how to use a search engine, Google being the primary one. We know roughly how to search, but then you have power users of it that know, like, can get more information than you can looking for the same thing because they understand the system and they understand this is how I need to ask for it. And that may not be the most intuitive way to ask. I think that's where AI is going to change things a little bit because you don't have to be as intuitive with your request, but you still have to know how to ask for things. The nice thing about it is it's essentially a conversation. So if the first prompt doesn't give you what you want, you can be like, no, I was looking for this. And it will remember, I put that in quotes, what it said before and then refine it from there.
To that exact point, Ryan, before we started this, I wanted to make sure I had a good grasp of what a large language model is. And so using one, I actually asked it, I said, can you explain how AI works and specifically large language models? Break it down for me. And it did. And it was pretty lengthy. And so I asked it to break it down even further to make it more concise. And even after doing that, I thought, you know what, there's about eight lists. There's a list of 8 things on here, and each thing has 3 bullet points underneath it. Just give me a summary. So I said that, and it broke it down into 1 paragraph summary, which is kind of what I read earlier. So you do have to learn how to use the tool, definitely.
But the time saving. So I mean, yeah, you spend a little bit of time doing that, but think about if you had to compile all that on your own. So Ian, I think you were going to chime in a little bit there.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the evolution of this and the time since it's launched, and even before. I was using ChatGPT as a Google replacement at a certain juncture this year because it was more refined than a Google search with 72 trillion results. And then you see Google's now integrated different levels of AI, and it tells you on the screen before you go, AI searching for the best answer, and even an executive summary it puts together there. But just kind of laughing out loud at the evolution. Remember Ask Jeeves? And that was the original search engine, and that went to the wayside. And then if you recall back before smartphones, Cha-Cha, and you could text 242 because I tried to get a job there in college and I was not a quick enough Googler to earn the 1 cent per hour high wage that they paid. But that was the quickest way to get information. That was really a human-based attempt to mirror what is really an AI-generated response now. So going back to where is it going? I mean, it's as simple as it'll ever be. And I think even the companies leading the marketplace now in 10, 15 years, good odds they could be ghosts. I mean, that's not a prediction. It's just the way technology evolves. Something else will move into this space.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see the evolution of even just the 2 biggest ones. I mean, we keep talking about ChatGPT and Google Gemini. ChatGPT kind of came out of nowhere from OpenAI, but then they got they got Microsoft money behind them. They got bought up, and then you have Gemini that's backed by Google, which has I think a few resources they could spare. So are we gonna is the world big enough for 2? Because Ian, you just talked about the old search engines, Ask Jeeves, Dogpile, Cha-Cha before that, Yahoo Search. Anybody ever use that one?
Bing, don't forget
Right?
Bing. They're still trying.
Another podcast, another day. But what do we say when we want to look for something right now?
You Google it.
Google it.
We're going to Google it. I don't know. Maybe there isn't enough space in the world for 2. Will there be one that rises to the top? It'd be interesting to see. It's going to be fun. But that does bring me to a concern, and because something Ian you talked about, and I've been seeing it whenever I Google something, because there is no searching anymore. We're just going to Google it. That's a verb, and we're all living with that. How much information are we going to potentially miss? Because if you think about it, before any of this, before search engines or anything, you found information by going to the library, going into a good set of encyclopedias, who all had a complete set in their house. Those things were a little pricey, and then they were outdated by the time you got them. But that was the sum total of information you can get a hold of. And then search engines exploded onto the scene, and that was now our view of the world. I mean, now we have our view of the internet is what Google shows us. What are we going to see with AI? Like, how much do you think it's going to be more narrow, or do you think it's going to open up? I legitimately don't know. So, guys.
I think there really is no answer to that, unfortunately, because the way this thing has evolved so quickly. I mean, I'll never forget the first time AI was introduced to me. My younger brother, I was visiting my parents. My younger brother said, "Hey, I downloaded this app called ChatGPT. You should check it out." And I did. And I mean, it was like the doors of information were blown off for me. But it is so quickly evolved from what it was the first time I used it to where it is now that I just don't see any real good way to predict what's going to happen to it. It's almost like all technology, right? Like every time there's a new iteration of technology that compounds upon itself, it grows exponentially. So I would love to say that I have any idea what could happen in the future with AI, but any guess I would make is just going to be so off base with no real basis of information. So that's a long non-answer to your question.
It's a very good labor relations response. So he's learning well. Ian, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think with anything, you run the risk of being narrow-sighted, especially if you're using this in a labor relations setting. You're only going to receive the answers that this LLM is going to pull for you. So I think you have to be very intentional in not losing the human touch and to stay curious and trust but verify. I think we'll talk about that quite a bit. But the odds are high something will be missed, just as it was when it was the Encyclopedia Britannica, whatever that name was. So trust, verify, don't forget the need to have a conversation and a history lesson yourself. There's things that are not in writing because these are only pulling things that are, an audio clip or in writing that exists online that it can pull from. And if something's in the memory vault of a human, you should also be trying to extract it that way. Don't rely on this so much that it's your only source of information, just like anything in the world today.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of what we deal with. We have so much out there. There's so much noise that we almost crave for that to be, there to be that one single source of information. But that could be the biggest mistake we can make, is depending 100% on something. That is, I guess I will kind of sing the praises of AI a little bit there, at least like ChatGPT. They're upfront about it of, hey, this thing can be wrong. This thing can mess up. And that's a big thing you need to have in your head, is like, this can be wrong. I remember my teachers did not like Wikipedia. They said you shouldn't use that. You shouldn't cite that or use that as any credible source for writing a paper or doing a project. But I always found better information that was crowdsourced than I would using some of the more reputable ones. And I remember telling a teacher that one time, it's like, I know about this topic. So I know enough to know that when I read something that, that's not true. You have to know a little something about what you're looking up, at least enough to know that that's not right.
Well, and Ryan, don't forget, you can ask these LLMs to cite their sources and their answer, and they'll provide you a direct link to what it pulled from as well. Just like Wikipedia, if it was linkable, you could validate the information and source it as your teachers wanted. If it was just black text, who knows? So,
right. We've talked a little bit about what AI is, how we use it, some specific examples, but we don't have all the time in the world to sit here and talk about it, and we have reached the end of the script that ChatGPT put together for us. So we need to start closing this out. But I'll just turn it over to you guys. Any parting comments you have on using AI and how it can benefit you, and things to be careful of, obviously. So, Ian, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in using an AI tool, the best step is to just jump and start trying to integrate it a little bit. This is 10% of the day that I'm trying to tinker with and play. This is not 100. We're still having every bit of the human touch and relationship and driver, because labor relations is a relationship tool, and there's nothing that can replace that experience and being effective and moving the industry forward. So use it as an accessory. Again, be mindful of proprietary information and be mindful that it is not a perfect model, and trust but verify.
Yeah, good advice. John, what do you want to leave folks with?
Yeah, I just want to echo what exactly Ian said. I mean, it's not, I'm not spending all day using this thing. It's not like 24/7 I'm using AI. I make a joke that I'm made of it, but that's just a joke. AI is a tool. It's supposed to help you do things that that you might struggle with, but it can make mistakes. So you always got to check and verify, make sure that all the information that it's spitting out, do some research on your own, make some phone calls, talk to people, to make sure that the information is actually correct and not just you prompting it in a certain way to give you an answer that it thinks you want. And it's not going to replace people. It's not, maybe one day in the future, who knows? Like I said, I have no way of knowing. But today's AI, people's jobs I don't think are at risk. I think that it is a tool to help enhance people's jobs and make them better at what they do. But it's not close to the point where, all of a sudden people are going to be losing their jobs and the world's going to be imploding because AI is taking over. It's not quite there yet. And hopefully my AI overlords from the future don't hear me say that, but that's where we're at today.
John just fell off the nice list. No, I have to echo what both Ian and John have said. It's going to revolutionize technology even more so than it already has. It's going to change our lives. It's going to change our professional, like our careers. It's going to change how we interact personally, like everything else in technology has. I had a very interesting conversation a few weekends ago about AI, technology, all that, and we might be coming to a point where technology is almost outpacing culture. So it's changing so rapidly that our culture almost can't keep up with it. But if there's anything we've seen as humans, we're really good at adapting. So if there's one thing I can leave you with, these guys have already said the trust but verify, make sure the work is correct. I just want to leave everybody with, don't ignore it. Remember it's a tool. Remember it's positive. Remember it can give you back a few precious seconds. So use it. Play around with it. Try it out. Ian, John, thank you guys for being on today. Appreciate you sharing your insights. It's always fun. We wind up talking about this kind of stuff all the time, so I'm glad we were able to turn it into some content. And for those of you that have listened in, if you have any questions or you want us to dive more into this topic or you want us to show a little bit more about how we use it, we'd be happy to do so. Corner us at a conference. You're already doing that anyway, so you may as well throw this one in. But thank you guys for listening. Gentlemen, thank you for being on today, and we'll see everybody next time.